Kumlan and a Black Gemara. Today's daf is daf Mem Daled. This is Wednesday, the third day of Chol Hamoed Pesach. So the Mishnah, which we learned yesterday already, talks about four brothers who married four women and they all died. Then the fifth brother is able to marry all four wives. That the Mishnah doesn't say the fifth brother. It just says if they want, somebody can marry all of them. That's the first part of the Mishnah. But the next Mishnah, the part of the Mishnah is if somebody is married to two women and he died, you only have to either marry one of the women or give chalitza to one of them, and the other one automatically is exempt. We also said that if one of them was already puzzled, for example, she's a divorcee before she married Reuven, and if you could give chalitza, give it to her. But might as well give it to her. Why take the other woman and disqualify her from marrying a kohen? Says the Gemara. First thing is Arba Achis Hagadata, four brothers. The four brothers, they all died. Who's going to marry them? Four of the brothers died, but there were many more. If he wants, he can marry all four wives, all four Yevamos. Says the Gemara. They actually allow him. But Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, it says they call them over. The elders of the city hang themselves. They shouldn't even use the proxies. They should do themselves. And then the Pasuk says, "V'dibru elav." They should speak to them. Again, as they give them sound advice. For example, the Yavam was very young. He's a Canaan. She's very old. Or the converse. Who's and he was very old. He yelled and she was young. We tell him, what are you going to do with this young woman? Or with this? It's not a relationship. Go find another shidduch, someone who is similar vintage as you are. Don't bring an argument into your house. So why won't we advise this person the same thing as well? Says no, we're talking about a case, the Efshalai, he can afford to have four wives. So why limit it to four? As many as you want. Good advice. Four only and not more. There's a commitment. The man has to have marital relation with his wife. And this way, if you have four wives, you will have at least each one will have 1 week. Talmud Chacham only has once a week marital relations. So then if he has four wives, each one will have once a week. The machlekes Rishonim, if this is only limited to a Yevama, that it comes out that each wife here will only have relations once a month. Is this only sufficient for Yevama or to all women as well? Misha Hayan Nasri married, Reuben was married to two women. The Shimon has to give either Yibum or Chalitza to one of them. Question is, why can't he marry both? I'm across in the Pasuk, that he refuses to build the house of his brother. It says in singular form. You only build one house, not two. The Nachal is Tavayu. Let him just give Chalitza to both of them. Because there's the Pasuk there as well. And when it comes to Chalitza, it says, Beis Chalutz Hana, the house that removed the shoe. So again, it's a singular. Only one of the women gives chalitza, not both. So they're asking more of one chalitza, one yibum. So why don't we do yibum with one and chalitza with one? On Makra, it says a pasuk, im lo yachbet. If the man refuses to marry, then he gives chalitza. Sounds like he had a choice. But if he wanted to, he could have. The rule is if you can marry, then if you don't refuse to marry, go ahead chalitza. Because if you cannot marry, since you cannot marry both wives, so therefore you cannot give chalitza to, let's say, to that person. But furthermore, to both of them. We don't want people to walk around saying, "Oh, half the house is yibum and half the house is chalitza." Says the Gemara, what's wrong? Let them say, who cares? If Yirsi gave Yibum to one of the women, and then the other one which didn't achieve anything, who cares? If you gave Chalitza to the first one, then you're not allowed to be miyabim the other wife, the co-wife, because it says that once you didn't build a house, finished. You have no connection to the house. In fact, in Isa Karis. You have the love of La Yivna, you shouldn't build a house, and then it goes back to the normal Isa, reverse to Isa, which is the brother's wife. The aim is a lot of there's only one wife there, it's kind of mitzvah, you have mitzvah yibum. But Ki'ika Tarti, the two women, they're like mitzvah yibum. There's no mitzvah yibum. Says you want to, if so, if you really believe that, then Soras Erva. We learned before for the pasuk Litzra, we learned before that if Reuben has two wives, and one of them is, let's say, an Erva to Shimon, Shimon's daughter, or Shimon's mother-in-law, or whatever. In Soras Erva, so the co-wife of that Erva is also exempt from Yibum. And also, why do you need a pasuk? Since the two women there, automatically there's no Yibum. Hash to base Baal Mamad Labnech listening, or even you can't do two. It's sort of but you got something that's sort of erba. Says you want to know. Alamalai, why not? Itzach, we need it. I would have thought erba avrei kind. I would have thought the erba doesn't count because since the erba cannot marry Shimon, it's not one as if Reuben was only married to one wife. It is Yavim Tzarasa. You should marry the co-wife. Kamashulon, that's seed is forbidden. How do I know? Yevemta. So we know us. So we say Yevemta Rima. It says twice Yevama. So it tells you the what that that both Yevamas are included in this Isser as well. That means even if he has two wives, there's still the mitzvah of Yibum. You can have two Yevamas. One is kosher. Rabbi taught us don't throw out your waste if someone else can use them as well. Same here. Why go ahead if you have to give chalitza and give it to the woman who could have married a kohen? We'd rather give it to the woman who's disqualified anyway from marrying a kohen. Says the Mishnah. The next Mishnah. Reuben was married to a woman, then he divorced her. She married somebody else, and she was divorced and became a widow. And Reuben remarried her, which is an Isser in the Torah, lav. If he married the woman that he gave chalitza to, which again there's a lav. Or if he marries the relative of his chalutza. Marrying the relative chalutza, generally speaking, is only midrabanan. We'll talk about that soon. Yaitz, in all these cases, he cannot remain married. Kiva holds that even chayove lavin, even if the issur of living together is only a lav, any child from that union is considered mamzer. And the reason for that is he holds that there's no kedushin at all by chayove lavin, and because there's no kedushin, the child is a mamzer. The Chachamim disagree. The Shimon Atimni, they say ain't about mamzer. They hold that a vlad is not a mamzer unless it's from an isa karis. They say Chayiv Lavin is a valid condition, you need to get. So the child is not a mamzer. What the child's status is, the Gemara will discuss. But the child is not a mamzer. And they say, therefore, that it's all right. But Maidim, they do agree. If you're divorced, your wife and her sister, for example, you marry her. Shavlad mamzer. There's an Isa Karis involved, and the child is a mamzer. So it says the Gemara, sorry, the Noisy Kravis says about mamzer. Keep a hold if you marry the relative of the chalitza of the child of mamzer. But Amar Shalak, you say, Kan Shana Rebbe taught Achois Gurushas Mitivri Teira, marrying your divorced wife's sister is Asma Teira. But Achois Chalutza, marrying the chalutza of your wife is only Midrabanan Mitivri Seifrim. So you learn Krevas Girushas. When he says over here that everyone agrees that you are the child of mamzer. He's talking about if you marry the relative of your grusha, let's say your divorced wife's sister. There's an Isser Karis involved. How does that make sense? It doesn't say for a moitiv, everyone agrees, but if you marry the relative of your grusha, of mamza, child of mamza. Now, yeah, maybe if already we were talking about the grusha's relatives, in this case, Rabbanah moitiv is Isser Karis, the child of mamza. Ali, you can tell me loy aidiba. If you're going to tell me that we're talking about the relative of a chalutza, not of the grusha, then my imagine that where does this grusha's relatives come into the scene that we're talking about? So well, that's not a question. The deal mahakamash, we want to teach you that even though Chachamim hold the chayavi lab in the child of mamzer, we want to teach you the yesh mamzer b'chayavi krisis. Because there's an opinion that even chayavi krisis there's no mamzer only if it's chayavi misses bezin, the punishment that bezin the 4 deaths of Bezin, not Koros from Hashem. And Amish wants to tell you, that we rule like Shimon HaTimni, that there's a mamzer chayav krisis. So if that's the case, Torah Kabbalah, look later on. Is a mamzer, who's a mamzer? Kol she'ei basa shebla yove. Any relative that you have, if there's an Isser of la yove, there's an Isser of mamzer. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shimon HaTimni, because Rabbi Akiva holds that kedushin is not chal, chayav lavin, so therefore the child is a mamzer. Comes along Shimon HaTimni, he says, Kol shechayav in olav kodev deshemayim. And our Mishnah wants to inform us, Allah chikit wadav. His words, Dilma, and therefore Dilma, perhaps because our Tana here is trying to tell you, you want to know why something we're talking about is there to tell you that Allah of Shimon HaTimni, that Chayav Krisis is what it bears a mamzer. Says the Gemara. So what's that? So the Gemara is trying to say here that therefore. It seems from here that the purpose of this Mishnah is to tell you that the halacha of Shimon HaTimni, that there's a Isa Chayav Karas. And so if that's the case, you want to know why we're talking about Moedim and Neisa Krevas Rishasai, we're talking about it because we want to talk about Chayav Krisis, that the halacha is like of Shimon HaTimni. And so the Gemara, and therefore your proof that you wanted to say that when he said Krevas Chalutzasa, he meant Krevas Rishasai is not a proof anymore. Because you want to know why we talk about Krevas Rishasai? Because we want to talk about Chayav Krisis. Says if that's the case, you want to say the Dilma Zazlan Ketang Rishon Tim Imke List Nishah Chayav Krisis. Why choose this example? Krevas Rishasai. Why choose example? Elishman doesn't approve that Aidiba, that we were already discussing it, and where did we discuss it? When it says in the mission relative of the Chalutza, it meant the relative of Grusha. So you want to do Aidiba, maybe he didn't talk about it at all, but you want to know why he mentioned Grushasai? The idea of Tony Machzik Grusha, the mission begins where Reuben took back his wife after he divorced her, she married somebody else. The Noisei Chalutzase, or he married his Chalutza. The Krevas Chalutzase, the relative of his Chalutza. Faninami Krevas Grushase. So therefore he also mentioned the relative of Grusha because it's similar. Ella Krevas Chalutzase, having Mamze. So you must say, according to Rabbi Akiva, we're talking about Krevas Chalutzase, and he holds the relative Chalutza is also mamzer. Not like we say it's on Rabbanon, it's a mamzer. And why? Anytime Rabbi Akiva across the pasuk says base Chalutzanal. Base, you call him a house. By call him a house, what are we saying here? It's like his wife. That just like a grusha, we treat, even though you're divorced, she's divorced, like your wife, you're not allowed to marry a sister. So to the Chalutz is considered bias. Even though we're talking about there about the Yavam, we're talking about the Yevamos as well. But the Chalutz is like a bias, and therefore, if the child's a mamzer, if you have relations with his Chalutz. Everyone's made if you machzik grusha shavlad pogam. Even though we just said before that if you take back the Isa Lav and we hold it's not a mamzer, but it still has an effect, an impact on the child. The child now is considered a pogum. It's considered stained. In what way? It's stained in a way that it cannot, if she's a girl, cannot marry a kohen. Says the Gemara, man hakal moedim Shimon HaTimni Afgav the Shimon HaTimni ein mamzer chayav elav, even though he holds a mamzer chayav kris, and he mamzer lahav a pogum have or nevertheless, there's an impact on the child. That what the child is tainted now. That what it's considered a pogum. And how do I know that? We had this in the beginning of the Masechta. Is a weak lav. What makes it weak? Because it's limited only to kohenim. In fact, kohen god, the kohen god, in fact, nobody else has that. She has that isa. And but not pogum, if she has relations with the kohen god, the child is disqualified. And that one day with isa is equal to everybody. Ain't the din should not pogum. Surely the child should be disqualified. Thinking about it, we have a question on that. We can undermine the entire Kavachayim. You know why the Almana impacts on the child? Because it impacts on her. Can he add some his chalalas? She herself is impacted by what she just did. If the Kohen Gadol dies, she cannot marry a Kohen Hedjed, even though she's only an Almana, because of this of living with a Kohen Gadol in sin. But furthermore, it says clearly in Pasuk, it says that he Te'eva, that she is Te'eva. So we dash that he to Eva, that only she to Eva. So it talks about this Machzeh Grusha clearly says that this woman is a Eva. Only this woman, and not who? The aim manet even, but the children not to even. It's clearly that her children not pogum. So we undermine the kabbalah. The pasuk itself would see the children not pogum. Well, furthermore, Tanya, we learned that Baraisa. Amarze, give your shows, take back your divorce. Why? But no, you say chalutzasi, you marry chalutza. But no, you say kreva chalutzasi, you marry the relative of chalutza. Akiva says, "Ein lo bo kedushin." Akiva says, "There's no kedushin." There's no kedushin by a lot, and as a result of that, when it's men get, you don't need to get. And furthermore, the heap psula, she becomes possible, the love the possible, and the child also possible. Child of mamzer. The koifen oisel haitzi, we compel him to divorce her. The chachamim say yes lo bo kedushin. The chachamim say yes, there is kedushin. With tzrichei men get. There is kedushin b'chayv lav, you need to get, and v'hik shayla, she's kosher. What the kosher? No mam saying here. Now let's understand. Laman lav l'kuhuna. When we say kosher, we mean kosher to a kohen as well. So there's no pagam. So it's our third question. If you're telling me the child of chol pach is a pagam, no. A child of chayav lavin with a machzir shasa, he's not a pagam. Says no the kol. We're saying here that it's kosher to the kol, not a mamzir. When we say she's kosher, probably the same to the kol. Why shouldn't she be kosher to the kol? Because she lived in sin, therefore she cannot marry another Jew. Why not? Because she's mezana, she's possible to the kol. When it comes to her, we're talking about kahuna. I want that she the chiddush is that in this case she is kosher to a kosher only to the lot. She can marry a kohen. She's not considered a zoyna with the hila kahuna, blood now kahuna. We talk about her regarding kahuna. We're talking about the child also regarding kahuna. So we see from here that the child is not pogum at all. Says the Gemara immediate area. Does it say clearly that the two cases are the same? Hakadis or hakadis, each one the way it is. In fact, hachinam mistab, I'll prove it to you. The continuation beginning by the Akiva, it says he psula. He argues. He says that that chayav lab is not kedushin, so she's puzzled and the child is puzzled. Now, what respect are they both talking about the same thing? He psula man ilam the call to the community mishumazanya ifsula the call because she is mizana. She's puzzled to the call. Why? Ela the kuna. She's puzzled to kuna. She's a zayna. The Lord the puzzle man, the child is puzzled to Ilay Malakuna, the kol kosher. But Q holds a mamzer, remember keep up on mamzer, shit to the kol. So the child is also to the kol, the mother is also only to the kohen. So we see with the Reisha Hakadisa, each one is different. Say Fanami Hakadisa. Okay, so we're at the other question we had. The he to Ava Nami, I'll tell you, he to Ava is not coming to exclude children. He to Ava, the ain't Serasa to Ava. But a co-wife is not a te'eva. That the co-wife, in this case, could be very much on Arab, the co-wife is exempt. In this case, no, the co-wife has to marry the yavam. We'll get a chalitza. Abba now te'eva. The children are pogum. You can't marry a kohen. They can't marry a bas kohen. Sorry, can't marry. If she's a girl, she cannot marry a kohen. But we undermine the whole Kalachayim Mal. Itself impacted, and that's why the child is impacted. At least Mahachid, this is how you should learn. Everyone agrees, everyone agrees that if you have relations with someone, that you get an Isa chorus of La Pogum. There the child is Pogum. Man Hakom Moedim Rabbi Shua. The very Rabbi Shua that says that the only time is a mamzer is if chayav misses bezin. The Afghan Bishua ain't mamzer chayav kisses only for misses bezin, but he agrees, and the chayav kisses the child is impacted. He the mamzer lahavi pogam mi have bring your rival kavachem amon. Well, the same kavachem we had on top of the page, but now we're not talking anymore about chayav lavin. We're now talking about chayav kisses. Isa is not equal. It's limited to kohen gadol, but not pogum. Zushi isurishav v'kol ain't even the pogum. So surely here, which the Isa for everyone to take back your divorced wife, surely the child is impacted. If he tell Amon is different, she himself impacted. Hachanam here too. Kivin Shabala, she's also impacted because she was boil, also pogum. In this case as well, she is also because since she's living with somebody Isa Karas, she now becomes a Zaina and she cannot live with a Kohen. Now we're starting a new subject. Talking about Mam Zaydin, we already had also enough Tezvot tonight, and we're going to continue the subject. And that is, if a goy marries a yid and they have a child, what is the status of that child? So Rabbi Yechon says, everyone agrees that an Eved or an Oivik or Chadim, has a relation with either a woman, have blood mamzer, the child is a mamzer. No, not the child is a yid, that's kosher. Not that the child is a great, the child is a yid, but a mamzer. Man hakol moedim, who everyone agrees. Shimon hat timni. What do you mean share to me? Because even though generally when you say a mamzer only, one's chayav krisis because there's no kedushin. But since by a goy there's no kedushin either, so therefore the child of that is a mamzer, even though it's only a lav. I've got the share to me mamzer chayav lavin hani. When is that talking about the chayav lavin? The talks of kedushin. Generally, chayav lavin kedushin works. I'm over here. Oivek achavim the ever given the talks of kedushin. Because there's no kedushin, chayav krisis. They have the same state chayav krisis. That what the child is a mamzer. Makes you ask you a question. If a guy had a relationship with a woman or an eved, have a lot of mamzer, the child's a mamzer. Shimi Yudaim, but a mamzer elam and mishi yisura isa erva. Only if the isa is the isa of erva, not by like a guy, but the anush cutters. So we see that what, and they're still arguing. You're telling me that everyone is married when it comes to a guy, the child's a mamzer. We see clearly from here that what, that they're still arguing. Says the Gemara, you're right. Man hakol moedim who not Shimon Timni. Shimon Timni could very well hold that the Vlad there's no mamzer here whatsoever. Of a goy having relations with a Yiddish woman. So who's everyone agrees? Rebbe. Even though Rebbe says that later on that if he had chalitza with one woman, with one of the wives, and then he had relations with other wives, she does need a get. You don't need a get there because it's not really a valid relations. And in fact, it's an Isa Chorus. Now you have chalitza an Isa Chorus. So there's no kedushin, you don't need a get. Says Rebbe, but that's not said only according to Rabbi Akiva. But according to himself, he doesn't hold that way. He doesn't hold away. He treats a chalutza just like an erva, and therefore you're not allowed to, and therefore you what do you call it? There's no kedusha. The leila shidulay, but the Rebbe doesn't agree with him when it comes to allow this. You do need to get, but the evid might comes to a goy or an evid, he is might. The chiasar avdimi amar abishcha bavdumi b'shur rabbeinu oivek achav ev was all have land mamzer. The child's a mamzer, and therefore. But it's not so simple. As Mordechai said, ish for aku. The officer of the place of the palace, or Rab Tanchum, the son of Rab Chia, ish kvar aku from aku. Pardak Hanishvi also they once liberated or redeemed these captives. Also, Arma the Troy came from Arma the Troy. You have a chodad the Abraham. One of them fell pregnant from a guy, from one of the captives. Also, he said. They all claim that the child that you're carrying is a mamzer. I'm going to be a big deal. You know how to count names. I'll give you other names to counter that. Harav, Ushmul, the Bubble, great guys. Rabbi Shurban, Levi, Bakabah Yisrael, but Amni Lord is a Chilufa, Bakapora, the Aili puts a Zikri Dorim, the Amni. They all say, Evik Chavim, the Evid, Habab, I saw Vlad kosher. The Vlad is kosher. So therefore, Ella Rabbi Yosef. Rebbe, so Rabbi Yosef says that it is Rebbe. And we'll continue tomorrow, see what exactly Rebbe said and what he means. Okay, I good night, everybody. See you.